My name is Chris Clem. I'm a retired Chief Patrol Agent. There are 20 Border Patrol sectors across the United States. I was the sector chief over Yuma, Arizona. I was a Border Patrol agent for 27 and a half years. I mean, I started as a young agent in Lordsburg, New Mexico, back in 1995. And I moved around, went up the ranks, chose a pathway that got me into supervision and leadership. And I worked for 5 administrations. I came in under Bill Clinton. Worked for Bush and Obama, Trump and Biden, and I can tell you that it was every challenge had been met by each administration along the way. Whether it was more personnel, added technology, infrastructure, whether it's a wall, fence, whatever people want to say. But then things got really kind of crazy the last few years.
If you were talking about starting in the Clinton administration,
Yeah.
and working your way through the Biden administration, was it a slow, gradual decline in your view in terms of needs and addressing needs for the border?
If you go back to 1994, when they passed the crime bill that during the State of the Union address, President Clinton at the time, talked about putting 5,000 law enforcement on the streets, and that included border guards. That was his language, border guards, and it was based off of then former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan's big push on immigration and illegal immigration reform. And so I was hired under that. So that was the first push to say, hey, we need to get illegal immigration under control. And so it was people under Clinton, and I was hired under that. We were coming off the heels of Operation Gatekeeper and Hold the Line, where they built the first chain link fences along the border. Was the first real big step, some old Vietnam era landing mat to control this huge flow of people. And it was mainly at the time, early in my career, Mexican nationals coming looking for work, and a lot of seasonal immigration that you could trace back for 50 years, people coming in based on seasons. As it progressed, obviously we had the horrors of 9/11, which brought everybody together to say, hey, we've got to look at this even greater, like from an immigration perspective, visa problems to border security. It's where we began building a lot more hardened walls and barriers, because back in the early 2000s, we had a lot of people driving across the border. And so we put a lot of Normandy style vehicle barriers up along the border to prevent that mode of transportation into the United States. And then under Obama, we built a lot of wall. It was legacy policies and laws and appropriations under Bush, but Obama continued to do that. And let's go back in time to the beginning of President Obama's second term. In 2012, there was a big push for comprehensive immigration reform. And so the left and the right said, okay, we'll give you that, but you got to give us border security. So if you meet the border security standards, then we will pass something in regards to reform. And so they did. And we built a lot of wall, and we removed a lot of people, and we rounded up a lot of criminal aliens across the country. And things were going in the right direction. And then politics got really involved, and people argued over the definition of control. What was control of the border? What did that mean? And then President Obama, I think that was an infamous cell phone and a pen a conversation and executive fiat. And I was actually in Washington, D.C. as one of the leads for Customs and Border Protection to execute under President Obama's executive orders. And so, yeah, everybody was making progress. Then comes candidate Trump, and it was about building the wall. And that was a campaign slogan, build the wall. And for us as agents, it was a wall system. It was a wall package. It was so much more than a brick and mortar. It was technology. It was access roads. It was cameras. It was policies that would help us really secure that border, because we started seeing that lag at the last few years of President Obama. While he was pushing it, then he kind of flatlined it. Well, when it became President Trump and we implemented all the requirements that we had, things were going great. I mean, the numbers of people that were coming in had dropped. We were having a great time as an agency, because we had the tools we needed to do our job. The policies were effective, but I like to say clunky but effective. I mean, we had to start stop a lot of times because things weren't ironed out yet. People were so quick to get out there and do something. but it made a difference when you had the infrastructure in place, you had the policy in place, and the support coming from the White House to say, hey, we're knocking this down. We're tired of this. Boy, it was a great time to be a Border Patrol agent.
The idea that politics got involved, in
Yeah.
your view, in the view of other Border Patrol agents that you spoke with, what were the politics?
Well, we'll start with President Obama. When as soon as that administration started kind of putting the migrants and giving a those that have been here illegally kind of a pass, or well, if they're going to come over here and try to reunite with family, you need to let them go, right? And it's like, wait a second, that's not what the law says. We have to prosecute them, we have to process them. There's things we have to do, and they kind of started meddling, if you will, into the day-to-day operations because they wanted to control that narrative. Then comes along
meddling the same as micromanaging?
Yeah, I would say that, right? Because look, it's a kind of a known saying for any of the agencies that are based out of DC is that 3,000-mile screwdriver. What law says and what policy says is what we would operate under there in the field. But then all of a sudden they reached out with that screwdriver and said, no, you're going to do it this way because the executive branch has that authority by under the Constitution to execute those things. Well, it would really frustrate us because we knew what was right and wrong, but then wait, well, hold on a second, we're going to do it this way. Why? Why are we catching these people and releasing them? Why aren't we detaining them and letting them go through an adjudication process, which is better for everybody? Okay, so they may be detained for a few weeks or months, but they're going to get a decision. And then if the decision is to let them stay, they can continue with the process. If the decision is they have to be removed, then they get removed and they get to the back of the line and try again. So that began the latter part of the Obama administration. Then it became campaign candidate Trump, right? And so he was building the wall, right? That was his campaign. So now everything associated with candidate Trump wall became Border Patrol. The world was open to a whole new, like, what is this agency that he's talking about? Not a lot of people really knew about the Border Patrol and what we did, unless you were along the border. And so that was kind of a big thing for us. It put us in the limelight. We had kind of been just taking care of business. Think about the first few years of the Trump administration. Once he lost control of his party no longer had the House, they were going after him. Everything that he was doing,
Right.
and became a big thing, right? And look, I can tell you this. I was the deputy chief of El Paso during the Trump administration, midway through the administration. And El Paso was pretty much ground zero for the border crisis that began in 19. I couldn't turn around without tripping over a Democratic congressional delegation coming down to figure out what was going on. I mean, it was once or twice a week. Like there was dozens of members of Congress wanting to ask every question, turn over every stone to see what was going on. And that impacts the business flow of the operations for the Border Patrol when agents have to, watch what they're doing because Congress is coming to look and taking pictures. And, it just became so political. It's like, look, we just want to do our job.